Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I mean, who knows when this thing will actually be posted, but it's afternoon now, so I guess it's a nice way to start. Um, yeah, I was thinking last night on a Sunday night when one tends to think, um, when the things that you want to do, when your ambition is outrunning your actual accomplishments, um, that was what I was thinking was that I had kind of fallen behind on this little project that I am trying to do on YouTube. And, I figured that until I actually have a clue of what I'm doing, the only thing that I can really do is just try to put up content and, to get at what I'm trying to do as simply as possible. And so if I don't try, I won't succeed. So here I am. There are numerous things that I would like to talk about today, but I'm going to start with education because it is one. It's as far as controversial issues go, I think this one is kind of a non-controversial issue. In that I think anybody with a pulse, no, anyone with a brain is just a brain that's functioning as about as well as a pulse understands that we have a crisis in education and that the status quo isn't exactly getting it done. With that said, the inclination for communities, sadly to say, along with everyone else, the politicians, you know, the not the people that are on the front lines, not the legislators, but the people that are on the outside looking in, that without really knowing what to do, or when you're looking at tough options, the easiest thing is to just keep it like it is. But that mentality is had really steep repercussions. A little story for you. When I was substitute teaching last year over at the Long Beach School District, they had a kind of like when you logged in, there was a large menu of content that you could access, use, possibly. But some of it was just like educational programming that you could use to maybe like implement a lesson plan or something. For whatever reason, some of the material that was on these media sites was, not stuff that was produced last week. And something that particularly caught my attention was when I saw an editorial which was given by John Chancellor, who had been the he had been the anchor for NBC News. About the time that I graduated from high school, I paid attention to that too because this particular editorial had been produced in a daily news segment at the end of a broadcast back in 1991. And he was talking about the crisis in education. He was just looking at test scores and, the people were producing across the country and the deficiencies, particularly in math and science. And, there wasn't really a technology sector at that point in time, but there was an inclination that, workers were going to need to be more computer literates, or at least basically, purely literates. And that what we were producing was not going to be up to the task of the future. And I mean, I think that he hit it right. He hit the nail right on the head, because although we had, like I went off to college, graduated, went on my way, and about the time that I, was actually entering the workforce was really the beginnings of the .com boom. I mean that it an industry in its infancy that was revolutionizing financial markets. And all that that means is that people that actually already had a lot of assets, you know, had people that were doing their investments on Wall Street. Those people had, you know, their financial brokers were buying Yahoo. They were buying Google. You know, it does not mean that they knew a thing about what they were investing in. So, you know, long story and short, you know, I mean, that is a sliver of the population, even though it created an enormous amount of wealth. And then, of course, there was a bust, which these things happen because it's like, you know, what we have been suffering from largely in our economy is unchecked capitalism. You know, I mean, it is an economy that is working for no one, you know, except you know, people that already have quite a bit. And so, at any rate, you know, my hypothesis is that you know, people that were in particular sectors that always do well did very well, and you know, people that were, you know, being groomed for the middle class actually fell behind, and that was because of opportunity, but it was also because of literacy. You know, I mean, like, I remember reading that, like, if you're somebody that works, you know, for a manufacturer, you know, you repair Toyotas. Well, Toyota is going to have certain standards that they want to have maintained for anybody that works on their cars. You know, so they're going to send you a lot of literature, which you're going to have to be able to digest and understand, you know, and be able to implement. Well, you know, if you've got 8th grade reading skills, that could be a problem. And so, I mean, these guys that could get a job, you know, working on a specialty vehicle, working on a Mercedes-Benz or something, you know, maybe they have to just get a job where they're not doing that. And so, you know, a job that could be, you know, a $25, $30 an hour, $40 an hour job becomes a job that pays $12.50. And you know who that helps? Nobody. And I mean, and that's just, I mean, there are so many stories like that. And so let's flip to the current time. Here we are in the autumn of 2018, riding, yeah, the Dow is at 26,000, which is, you know, it's just preposterous as far as I'm concerned, and it's not making any sense to me after it hit 12,000, in my opinion. But you know, I'm looking at the Dayton Daily News online on Thursday afternoon, and you know, there's like a feature article about jobs of the future, you know, here in 2018, and it's talking about where they're expecting job growth to be. Okay, so it named 5 of the top sectors, and in 4 of them, these were all jobs that paid what? You know, about, I mean, what are we gonna? I was gonna say $15 an hour or $12.50. You know, $12.50, because that's essentially about what it was. You know, there's jobs for people working in the food industry that pay $10 an hour. That was going to be a large source of job growth. You know, people that do customer service type related things. That was actually one of the larger, you know, job growth features. Service workers, you know, people that work in the front end of the restaurants. You know, these are all jobs that are, you're talking about the death spiral that John Chancellor was describing back in 1991. Now, the only job out of these 5 top, you know, sectors of the future, you know, is nursing. Well, a beginning nursing salary in the state of Ohio is $30 an hour. That sounds pretty good to me, you know. But here's the thing, and there's a huge demand for nurses, and I think that people understand full well that, these are the kind of jobs that we should be preparing people for. But, they also require an emphasis in education. And, if people at the most basic level, in the local community level, are not getting some kind of a decent grounding in health, science, reasoning, mathematics, most importantly, reading and comprehension, do you really think they're going to get those 5 or 6 years of, you're talking about a college degree and maybe a master's in order to obtain that, that entry level $30 an hour job. And, without an investment in that, you just simply will never get there. All right, so that's my discussion on education.